Hello everybody, and this is Chaos with Chaos Esports Productions, bringing you another Bronze to Masters League game. So today we're going to be looking at a PvT. I hope you guys enjoy this because I know I had a lot of fun playing it. It's kind of interesting. The last couple PvTs that I've played, I've gotten just absolutely destroyed as a function of not being able to deal with drops. And I know when I came into this game, I'm just like, gosh, another Terran. So all I've got to do is figure out how to deal with the drops, and everything should be good. Another thing I'd like to make a comment about. Earlier this week, I submitted a post to Team Liquid. Team Liquid's a site that I'll put in the link in the description below. It's a really, really good place to pose questions to the community. You know, StarCraft is not just a game. It's very much a community of people who enjoy playing RTS as well as understanding strategy and how to deal with certain aspects of the game. So one thing that I pose to people is, okay, how do you deal with drops, and what are some, viable solutions of dealing with drops? So I got some really good responses. Some people suggested having like a DT in the main, depending on how early you deal with, or even just maybe more than just one single cannon, because that's what I tend to do, is go for one single cannon main, or in each mineral line to, combat dealing with drop play as well as widow mines. So, I got some really good, interesting feedback. Some people looked at my replay, and it was just overall just kind of a really good way to learn about the, how to deal with stuff. It's always interesting to get some other people's feedback as far as what kind of strategies work and don't work. So I strongly recommend you guys checking it out. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description so you guys can take a look and see what you guys like about the community. Anyways, so pretty standard opening, going for a 13 gateway, 15, 16 cybernetics core, and then the assimilator comes down at 15, 14, 15 time frame as usual. I tend to play, like I said, I tend to play a fairly standard game because cheeses and early rushes and whatever you want to call them are effective in the lower leagues, but might not exactly hold up against Diamond Masters players. I believe, if I remember right, this guy was a Platinum player, so still kind of on the same level as me. Choose to put on a little bit of early pressure, send the Zealot over, send a Stalker over. Just kind of the generic opening that I have. The reason why I like to reproduce this opening so often is it's all about mechanics. The quicker you can get something down, understand how it works, and then utilize the speed that you have of putting things down, getting certain units, and having your composition early enough that you can get ahead. I mean, this game is all about timing, and if you're very slow at getting your gateway or getting your cybernetics core, those few seconds will escalate exponentially as you get further through the game. It'll be that much less of a time that you have to get a certain research or so on and so forth. So it's always good to practice the same builds and kind of get an idea of the overall mechanics of what you're doing. Wow, I need to not do that. Anyways, so I went ahead and sent my Stalker and Zealot over. The cybernetics or mothership core is heading over as well. And he actually, I didn't even see that guy get in. Oh, I guess at this point he hasn't scouted. That was the SCV that I was harassing his mineral line with, or as they were building over here. Anyways, so he gets in, he sees kind of everything that's going on. I choose to get a robo because when I poked up the first time, I saw the Marauder Marine, type composition rather than just straight Marines or even Reapers. So, noticing this, I chose to react in such a way that, says, okay, Robo, if I get a handful of Marauders out with my Gateway army, I should be okay against most early pushes. So at this point, I just kind of am pushing in, putting on a little bit of aggression just to kind of scare him. I managed to supply block him by taking out the supply depot, and at this point I'm just kind of moving back, taking out his SCV as he's going home. Unfortunately, he will not be seeing his wife this evening. So sad. Anyways, putting down the expansion now that I kind of have, kind of scared him into thinking that I was doing something, and then, kind of, it's kind of that mind game you play with people. You go in, you put on a little bit of pressure to think, to make them think like they're gonna have to deal with all sorts of pressure early game. But by expanding behind it, the only thing that you really need to worry about is, continue on making units as you expand, because if he were to think that I'm going to be really aggressive and I'm not, he could make a whole bunch of units and then just kind of all in me. And obviously that can sometimes be very difficult to deal with. So basically, expanding behind it, getting up a few centuries so we can have some scouting options later with Hallucinated Phoenix, because as Protoss, it can be very difficult to scout. If you don't get an early enough robo, you might not be able to get an observer in, because a lot of times they build missile turrets in their mineral line, and it's a lot. It's kind of annoying. So, anyways, continuing on getting probes. He hasn't quite expanded yet, and I'm, at this point I was kind of thinking, wow, I really need to be figuring out what he's doing. I think this is about the time when I Hallucinated Phoenix. It'll come out soon. Anyways, behind this, getting on an extra gateway, and then I'm gonna once this Phoenix gets out, it's gonna basically the whole point of this Phoenix is to figure out, okay, has he expanded? If he has expanded, that's great. We can tech up a little bit since we've already got our expansion up, and then also get an idea of what his army composition is. Once we figure out what he's going for, we go in, we see the factory, we see the starport, we see a couple tanks, we see a handful of Marines and some Marauders. So we know that we're probably going to be seeing a Marine Marauder medevac with a handful of tanks in there. So we know what's coming. We continue to build on. We've got 2 immortals up, so everything's good and dandy with the world. And at this point, we feel safe enough to go ahead and get our Robo Bay. We know that since he's expanded, we know he's not looking to push anytime soon. He's just looking to sit back and kind of, get his economy up and do that sort of thing. So basically, he's just, we know we're safe to tech up like this. Also behind this, we're feeling good enough to put down a couple more gateways so we can, make sure our production's up. We're still getting our natural up. I do believe I noticed I had too many workers in my main, so I transferred down some probes. And yeah, so basically at this point, it's kind of turned into kind of a sit and base kind of game. And a lot of times in the lower leagues, this is kind of what'll happen. Both players will, kind of sit in their bases, and then it'll all boil down to one person pushing out. So let's go ahead and speed it up. Behind this, I'm just basically going to be getting up my upgrades, getting up more gateways, and then start on getting Colossus production. And basically, I'm going to slow it down so we don't lose too many frames. Yeah, so basically at this point, I was going to be pushing out, but I saw him coming, so I'm like, well, I need to get my army out there and do something. So I put down a couple force fields, see his tanks coming up, and we're going to go and slow this down. Now, I choose to build a whole bunch of stalkers behind this, because I want to deal with this air, because, I don't know, has he scouted? No, he hasn't scouted my bay, but he kind of thinks that Colossus are on the way. So actually, by him having going for Vikings as opposed to medevacs, it seriously hinders this attack overall. And basically, he's forced to land Vikings, and Vikings landed are in general not as good as them attacking a Colossus. So at this point, I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and walk over and more or less just kind of take him out. Because he pretty much lost his entire army, and unless he's been macroing behind it, he's gonna lose. And at this point, he doesn't have enough production to macro up enough, since he wasn't macroing behind it. Had he macroed behind it, he'd probably have as big of a ball as he had when he pushed. So I think his biggest problem is he chose, he was wanting to get lots of Marauders, but, obviously he doesn't have the gas income to do that. He's actually almost mined out of his main, so he's essentially on one base economy at this point. and at this point, I'm feeling comfortable enough to take my third and continue on just getting units. I went ahead and got charge. Now, this is something I need to work on. My infrastructure is always pretty poor, and this sometimes will happen to me where I've got buildings around my base and the probes just cluster, which is never good. So we move in at this point and more or less just kind of take him out. He managed to kill my Colossus. Oh well, no big deal. As long as he doesn't have any, I mean, it forces him to continue to make Vikings, and basically we walk up his base. And unfortunately, I didn't just have these guys up here attacking, because had I just had them up there attacking, I could have taken out the tank and wouldn't have had to deal with it. But anyways, at this point, it's GG, he calls it, and everything's good to go. I hope you guys have been enjoying this. It kind of gives you an idea of how, how to play as a Protoss, and then also gives you an opportunity to see what kind of strategies are out there against Protoss. I know when I was originally playing the Wings of Liberty game, I know I had a lot of trouble figuring out, okay, what is my opponent doing? Why is he doing what he's doing? And then how do I counter what he is doing? So I hope you guys have been enjoying. Feel free to, if you want to see more of these type of games, I tend to put these out a couple times a week. So feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed it. Feel free to like. Also, I stream these games, so feel free to check out my stream in the comments, or I guess in the description below. And I hope to see you guys in the next game.